Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I'm Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us. We have a good one scheduled for you. Once again, you know, every week I come here and I like to thank you for your comments, your sentiments, and of course, my previous guests always like to thank you for your comments and sentiments. Last week, you know, we had a conversation with Nigel Hughes. Again, the feedback was great, and we thank you very much for always tuning in and always supporting and so on. He appreciates the positive comments and even some of the negative ones, including the ones that were not so pleasant and in some cases downright filthy that we had to delete from YouTube. And yes, I'm talking to those of you who view the program via YouTube who seem to not have a sense of decorum. We still, embrace your sentiments and comments, even though we delete them almost immediately. So keep at it. You seem to have energy to expend. On today's program, I have a gentleman who, this is not his first time on the program. He is returning to Facing the Nation. Of course, in this environment, in this current period, we try to keep abreast with what's happening and to remind you of the important work that the current administration would have done. But this young man, he's not only here to talk about the important work and the good work that the current administration would have done, but also what has occurred in his community, in his region rather. But of course, I'll reintroduce you to him in a bit. I'll just give him some time. What I will do, I usually bring these readers to you at the end of our program, but I want to begin this week's program by giving you some information. It's basically me repeating sentiments from the Commissioner of Police, and I think it is very necessary for me to do that today, especially since we have, as far as I can tell, we've had peaceful pockets of protest around the country. The opposition did say that they would be doing that today because apparently they thought that after midnight the sky would have already fallen. The sky is still in place, but I just want to remind you of some sentiments from the Commissioner of Police, and this is just to remind you about how necessary it is to keep the peace at this point. As Commissioner of Police, and of course I'm reading here, he is saying that he is taking the opportunity to implore the current calm, let me repeat that, the current calm, peace and tranquility, and he wants that to remain throughout the nation as the decision of the court appeal is pending. Some of you know we're expecting that decision, I think, by 3. So those of you in internet land, by the time this program reaches you, that decision should already be out. The leadership and members of the Guyana Police Force have noted on social media, and I think it was really important that he said this, they have noticed on social media notions of a seeming intention to disrupt current calm in our society. May I, meaning the police commissioner, warn that anyone found in breach of the law will be dealt with in a condign manner. The force's membership throughout the 10 administrative regions is on high alert and endeavors to prevent and respond to any eventuality. The commissioner also said that he wished to inform the general public that contrary to what was recently reported in sections of the press that the Guyana Police Force has been renamed the Guyana Police Service, this is not so. It should be noted that the name change was proposed only at the meeting of the Police Reform Change Board. Such name change will require, among other things, wider consultations and legislative amendments. That was the sentiment. I think this was out on Wednesday because, of course, as you know, yesterday would have been on holiday. I thought it necessary to repeat that, especially where he is calling for there to remain current calm and peace. I have not heard of any violent acts among those Protestant protesters, and we like to keep it that way. It is their right, and I just want people to realize that while this government is in place, the APNU, AFC government, we're having peaceful protests. Think back to when it was the other side and the then opposition would take to the streets with peaceful protests. Think back to what would happen, what the police would have done to those people. Just something for you to think about. And now to my guest. I reintroduce to you the Mayor of Bartica, His Worship the Mayor, Gifford Marshall. Welcome back to Facing the Nation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Malika. And good day, Guyana, and it's always a pleasure to be on here.
Great, wonderful to have you. We have lots to talk about. I mean, for all leaders, the current political and governmental situation, I know it can be a bit frustrating because people are trying to keep their people in mind and keep people calm and so on. What is happening in Bartica? What's the atmosphere like in Bartica pertaining to everything that is happening politically?
Well, The atmosphere in Bartica can be considered as peaceful. I know that we have a number of residents who are concerned about what's happening nationally. And from time to time, we would engage them. And our message to them is simple, that they need to be respectful. We've always had in Bartica a very respectful history to any government that is in office. And we also take the message that we believe and we know for a fact that our governments are elected, and we need to, of course, follow, due process. We were very much concerned about some of the rhetorics that we were hearing, of course, not seeing on social media and seeing from some quarters. But I believe those individuals are exposing themselves because leaders in crisis provide a way out. They don't make, or I should say leaders in challenging times, they don't take a challenge and just make it into a crisis, right? So what we need now in our country more than any other time, I believe, is leadership, and we need all political leaders to exercise, responsible behavior. Malika, if I may start, I don't like to, as a matter of fact, I don't want to start on a negative note. I wanted to, I'll come back to that.
I know you, and I know you bring the positivity
I'll come back
Go ahead.
to something. I left Bartica basically yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
And I came through Shirima and then into Linden. I slept there last night and then came to Georgetown. And throughout that little course there, Guyana is such a beautiful country. When you look at the roads, and when you look at the infrastructure that you see along the way that's happening. When I arrived in Linden, the first thing that I took notice of is a synthetic track.
Okay.
And then right along the path, you're just seeing development. And I want to commend the government of Guyana for this. And it's something that, that we need to relish. We need to give God thanks for, because we have a caring government, we have a caring administration. And not only that, the beauty of this country is one that is to behold. I am one of those who believe that Guyana is one of the most beautiful countries in the entire world, in the entire world. And I was saying on the next program early this morning, a simple boat ride up the Essequibo River, it's so soothing, and that of itself is so enticing. And when you go to Letem and travel through the savannas, you could see how beautiful it is. But with that said, like I said, getting back to what is being said, growing up in Bartica, we've never had political tension. Our worst day was the 14th of February, 11 years ago, when we had the Bartica massacre, and we came together as a people, and we prayed for each other, supported each other, and we're working to ensure that would never happen again. But as we travel the country, we hear stories. And
the ethnic division.
Yeah, and I can recall about a decade or so ago, persons from Bartica, they visited a particular community, outside of Bartica, of course. And they were not accepted into that community. The poor people basically chased them out. And they were just normal residents. Okay. And then we always hear these stories about which community you can visit, or which village you can visit, and which village you can't visit. But Bartica was always somewhere that we opened to everyone. Even now, it's amazing how comfortable the Venezuelans and the Brazilians find our hometown, and other hinterland regions too, and other hinterland towns. But we've always been an open people. And we find it very difficult to understand why persons would be chased out of villages and communities. But over the last 2 weeks, we were able to get a better understanding of why. Because when we have leaders using that kind of language. Right? And using those kind of terms on national television, it's very frustrating, and it does not offer well for the future of this country. Indeed. So that's what I'm saying. We are fully well aware of what happened on December 21st. We know that GCOM, they have their responsibility, and I'm happy that the present government will in no way get involved in dictating what happens at GCOM. Let us allow GCOM to do what they have to do, and I'm quite confident that GCOM of themselves will identify well. They've already given a statement that His Excellency said that he will name a date. And we all go to the polls and do what we have to do. But you know what also amazes me, Malika, in this present situation? It's troubling because for over 2 decades in this country, 2 decades, we were deprived of the right of local government elections.
Exactly. I mean,
And-
you're mayor because
Yeah.
we've been
I mean-
eventually given the right to have local government
And to those
elections.
persons looking at the program, right? I mean, local government elections did a lot for me because it
Yes.
made me the first mayor of Bartica.
Yeah, yes,
And nothing can
yes,
change that.
yours.
And
Exactly.
not only that, when you visit Letem, when you visit Madio and Maburumo, you see the development in these towns. And that's because when you elect persons and you put persons to manage the affairs of the community, we know what's best for Bartica. The mayor of Letem knows what's best for Letem, the mayor of Madio. So decisions should not be made in Georgetown for those communities, and that's what was happening before. So when I travel to Georgetown and I go to Minister Bulka and I say to him, I need, these are our needs. And I go to public infrastructure and they try their best to see how they can meet those needs. As a result, you will definitely continue to see transformation in all of the towns, especially in the hinterland, because we're far flung. So over 2 decades, we were unable to have local government elections. And that is a serious, serious breach of our constitution and also taking away of our democratic right.
Since we've been given law, and of course I know you can only speak fully and authoritatively for Bartica because you are the mayor of Bartica. Since we've been given the right, because we've had it under this government in just, we're not even fully 4 years yet. We've had 2 local government elections.
Yeah.
Do you find that the people of Bartica feel they're more comfortable, their things are more accessible to them?
Definitely. They now have someone that they can hold responsible and accountable because we have water being an issue and they need elected officials to represent them where water is concerned. We have some sections, for example, like the 5 miles housing scheme. That scheme was built under the previous administration, and those house lots were sold for very, very high prices and no infrastructure in place. So now we're trying to put those systems in place, but they expect us as elected officials to represent them. And they have a number of other issues, so they now have individuals that they can go to and say, listen, we need representation on this issue.
Even though you were able to say, you did say, you were able to say, look, Minister Bulkan, these are our needs, and Minister Patterson, these are our needs. Have you been getting any situation is the wrong word, any examples of whereby, yes, they will help to give you your needs, the community needs, the town's needs, but have you had interference, so to speak? Well, Gifford, we're giving you this, you got to do it this way.
No. His Excellency would have made it quite clear since way back, I think, in 2015 and 2016. And he spoke to us as mayors, and he expects us to work in the best interest of the people, and more so the vision is to make these towns capital towns of the regions. So while there's a working relationship between central government, and there must be, between central government, the regional authorities, and the local democratic organs, I can safely say there's no interference. And sometimes, I can jokingly say here, we get a lot of credit for things that should go in other directions. And I'm saying that when I say we are talking about the local democratic organs, because we go to central government, and they're the ones who have to make these decisions in terms of allocation of resources. And they give us these resources, and when these resources come, at least persons say, well, yes, the town council is performing and so forth. But I think central government also need to get a lot of the credit for some of the projects. For example, we would have had our transport and harbors telling there as an eyesore, and that's the entry point for Bartica.
Yeah.
At the end of this year, in excess of $700 million Guyana dollars would have been spent on that facility to upgrade it. Presently, half of that project is completed. Over the last 2 decades, Bartica would have suffered severely where blackouts are concerned. We've had 2 generators there that probably the age of my grandparents who've now gone to rest. We now have in excess an investment by central government of in excess of $500 million Guyana dollars in our new facility that we have there, and that facility will be commissioned shortly, in a matter of, I would say, a month or 2. We've also had the Bartica Patara Road being a sore point because we've seemed not to get that right over the years. Central government would have allocated hundreds of millions of dollars towards concreting that infrastructure.
Wow.
So the first mile coming out from 5 miles to say 5 miles back to 4, and they're going to work coming out to central Bartica. You see the works have started, and that will be completed in a matter of months. And throughout the township of Bartica and throughout the hinterland, because I stay close to the mayor of Madio, I'm still to meet the mayor of Letem, because they have a new mayor now. But I visited Letem sometime, I think, late last year. But throughout the hinterland, you're seeing the changes. You're seeing the press, what's happening in Mabarumo, right? The transformation from wooden bridges to concrete bridges and so forth, and access to better facilities. So it's happening. The hinterland is developing.
I'm happy that you're bringing all of this information to light, because one of the reasons sometimes we come here and we preach and we say, look, this government has done so much for Guyana. But you see what you're doing now, you're not the only guest who are doing it, but because of the part of our country that you're coming from, and you're giving specific things that have happened and specific developmental projects that took place under this government. Are you now in a position to say, would you say that Bartica can possibly be described as a tourist hub, both for domestic tourists and international tourists?
Well, we've been forced in that direction, forced by the populace, right? We would have seen over the last year or two an increase in persons, and I'm talking about Guyanese here, visiting Bartica.
Okay.
And that is due to, we do have a number of tour operators who are, I think it's just about 12,000 or thereabout for a day trip to Bartica. And you visit a number of these historic sites along the Essequibo River, and meals included. So when you look at that price, it's very, very competitive. So every Saturday, Sunday, and many times during the week, you see a number of Guyanese, number of persons coming in and visiting. And that is forcing us to improve our infrastructure. It's forcing us to work on our solid waste management, because we believe once people continue to travel to Bartica, then they will, of course, take the message around, and you'll have more and more people coming. Of course, we have what we want to refer to as event tourism.
Okay.
So, for example, we have the regatta. We know that will attract a number of individuals. We've just had Pago. We have a number of other religious activities and secular activities that we'll be having. We believe that Bartica could be the center of these activities, and persons can travel to your township or to your community for a number of activities. So we're working with the religious community, we're working with the secular groups, we're working with a number of non-governmental organizations to put together programs and activities to bring people to Bartica so that we could develop our tourism package.
And do you believe that these activities and so on could also serve as a vehicle to promote what His Excellency President Grinch has been talking about since 2009, 2010, which is ethnic unity? And the reason I'm asking too, because I think most of the other parts of the country want to know what Bartica's secret is. You even talked about peace and calm in Bartica. So I'm assuming that the ethnic tensions that you're seeing on social media in other parts of the country are not as heavy in Bartica. I think Bartica could be used as a model. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it all goes back to respect for each other. Some of us are tall, some are short. Some persons like me are a little dark. Some persons like you, of course, the complexion is different. But we cannot judge, we should not judge individuals based on their ethnicity. We should not, this kind of give jobs we all are Guyanese. And that's one of the things that we need to embrace. We all are Guyanese. And I think that Bartica, and we have a few more towns too that is similar. But we are, I believe, an excellent example where social cohesion is concerned. Okay. I was saying to a friend earlier today that if you visit our schools and you look at our children, it's just amazing when you see the mixture. I don't know how we're going to place them. We can't call them Amerindian, we can't call them Chinese. They're just beautiful. And it goes to show that when we come together as a people, right, our offspring can be so beautiful. And I think we have, when I look back at our history as a town, we have a very rich history. I want to share here that I was sharing on a radio program earlier that when we grew up, we mind each other business in a good way. And we looked out for each other. Bartica only had like 2,000-3,000 people.
Village to raise a child?
Right. And those were the days when every Saturday you bake bread, and then you send bread to the neighbor, and you send to this friend, and so forth. And every Sunday you cook soup. And you share. So that of itself was our foundation. And that of itself groomed us to look out for each other and care one another. So now and then we'll have persons who visit the town who came from other places who would want to bring these kind of ethnic
the tensions.
Ethnic tensions
some
too,
of the
right?
negativity.
But we try to speak against it.
Okay.
right? And we try to, we condemn it because we believe that as a people, we need to respect each other.
Good point. I mean, most people who know that the two of us, we belong to the same political party, partnership, whatever you want to call it, coalition, whatever. This is what myself and so many people are calling silly season. How do you plan to, as mayor, how do you plan to, in a sense, protect the people from what will actually occur? You already talked about when people come in with the negativity, you have to try to quell that. People are going to be on campaign platforms. You're going to have the PPP coming there shouting and screaming. And viewers, I know somebody accused me of being biased, saying that, Malika, you have to be fair. It's on both sides. People are shouting and screaming. But I can only speak for what I know about. And there's nobody who can debunk this. Every single week, the leader of the opposition is on there being disrespectful and trying to plant things in the citizens' head. My question really, though, and I know, Gifford, you're not going to be dragged in a back and forth because you're not that type of leader. But how do you plan to protect? Because one day you're going to have the PPP coming there standing and shouting and screaming, and come on, we're human. Some of our very enthusiastic young APNU, AFC leaders may come and push back, and it's going to become a nasty back and forth. What are your suggestions for us dealing with that?
All right. You have me on the hot seat. But here's what. I have a number of friends who are supportive of the PPP, right? And a number of them. And we should exchange views. There's some things we agree on, some things we agree on, some things we don't. And on the campaign trail, politics is politics. They go and sometimes they say some things that I'm shocked that they would actually go and say and actually do. But they want to gain power, and I mean, not that they will do it at any cost, but they go to the people and try to win them by saying things.
I'm sorry, Gifford.
No,
I just disagree with you a bit here. The leader of the PPP, and he's made it clear he will do it at any cost.
I'm getting a point.
Go ahead.
But I know these individuals who belong to the PPA, a couple of them, right? We don't have much in Bartica, but a couple of them, a handful. And they're all from all ethnic groups. But what I can see here on this television is that I know these people and their values. I know what they stand for. And when I listen to, or sometimes hear or read the comments of the opposition leader, I don't think he represents them. Because they will not stand. No, I'm telling you that they will not stand for some of the things that, the nonsense I hear coming on our television. And that's why I said, what we need in this country is leadership. And that's why His Excellency, I mean, he's a president that we all can be very proud of.
Yeah.
Right? Guyana needed a leader like His Excellency, President Granger. He needed someone who would stand up, I don't want to say for righteousness because some person might misinterpret it, but stand up for the law and let us have a country where all of us can be very proud of and where we can exercise our pride. But when you have individuals taking to television and being so irresponsible, you have children listening to the television, you have foreigners, you have so many vulnerable groups. And when you will make these statements, I mean, it do not speak well of you, it do not speak well of your political party, and of course, it do not speak well of us as a country. So that's why I want to say to us here that Guyana is a beautiful country. I started by saying, how beautiful the terrain was coming through from Bartica to Linden to Georgetown, how beautiful our people are, and how hospitable they are. And we need to always put that forward. We cannot destroy who we are just because one individual or a small group is very selfish and greedy, and they want power at any cost. So we're going to destroy our image. We would have worked hard.
The world is always watching.
Yes. We would have worked very hard to get where we are today as a country.
Exactly.
As a result, we have to maintain that. So I want to call on all Guyanese to be peaceful, to be respectful. Even those persons who are calling for all those chase out communities and all that nonsense, right? I don't want them to visit communities and be chased out, but they might, bring things on themselves. So we as a people, like I said, we have to be very respectful. We have to be very, let's observe the law and let us, work in the best interest of our country. So, like I'm saying, I believe that we have much to offer as a country, and we will continue to work with all stakeholders to ensure that Guyana develops. I think on Saturday we play Belize it is. We have an international game, and that is a time when all of us should be wearing our yellow and green T-shirts. or jersey, whatever you want to say, go and support the game. If you're not going to support the game, wear your top and walk the streets and support our footballers because it's a very, 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 very important game. And I think that once we win that game, we'll qualify for the Gold Cup. So there's a lot going on with our country. There's a lot in our favor. We know about the oil. And we're now on the front burner. And we just have to continue to work.
Great.
To keep ourselves there.
Viewers, if you're now tuning in, today my conversation is with the mayor of Bartica, and he reminded me the first ever mayor of Bartica. Very proud, of course, because he's one of my political colleagues. So we're talking things, governance and politics and so on today. You've talked a lot about Bartica and the development, where it's been and where it's come. One of the things you have not mentioned, and I remember 2 years ago, everybody was saying we're using Bartica as the Green Initiative model, as the model town. How has that project fared where it's at now? Can the rest of the country still depend on Bartica to be the model for Green Initiative, for going green?
Definitely. We were given that mandate, and we continue to work to ensure that we achieve our objectives. Of course, with everything else, there are some challenges with some of the infrastructure that we may implement, but that is part of being the model. Wherever there's weaknesses in the system, we know when it's ready to be implemented in other places. Definitely, we'll have to make those adjustments. But the green agenda is well on its way, and Bartica, of course, continue to work very hard here to ensure we fulfill our objectives. Now, again, I want to thank the government of Guyana because there are a number of shortcomings, there are a number of loopholes, and the government would have been very, very supportive in terms of us meeting our objectives, because without the necessary resources of itself, we were unable to really achieve those objectives and fulfill that mandate. So we're very, very grateful. I want to say this here quickly, Malika.
Sure.
About a number of years ago, I think when we just had an NDC, a Neighborhood Democratic Council, there was an incident and the matter ended up in the courts. And coming out of that, the businessman who was involved in that case he won the case, right? The businessman won the case against the NDC. And since after the NDC, we've had an IMC that was installed by the PPP. And then, of course, we went straight into, when the government took over, they ensured that Bartica became a town, and we're now a town. And we have a new administration. But what we would have inherited is a lawsuit to millions of dollars. And that would have plagued our resources. And many times we don't speak these things because we have our challenges, and sometimes even in Georgetown here, I know a lot of people are very critical of the municipality here, the city council, and other municipalities, but there are things that don't come to the forefront that are very, very challenging. And that lawsuit that we inherited really, really was like a burden on us. But not once did we stop collecting garbage, not once did we stop paying our salaries. We continue to provide our services, and that was because of the help of central government. But a few days ago, I got mixed up with Thursday. I thought we were actually on Monday.
Yes, because
but
it's a holiday.
On Wednesday, I was happy to be informed by the administration that lawsuit, the resources were honored, so we were able to pay that off. And we now have our resources being directed to the development of our town. But we were able to honor that lawsuit, if I'm to use that word, because of the help that we continue to get from not only local stakeholders, but also central government. But that was a major crisis for us in itself. So we continue with our mandate, even now that we would have crossed that hurdle, we will now pick up the pace of development. And persons living in Bartica will continue to see major transformation happening in terms of our roads, in terms of services being provided, in terms of facilities being upgraded for sports, and also in terms of capacity building for people.
What is the support from the business community in Bartica like? Is it satisfactory?
It is satisfactory. It is satisfactory. Bartica in itself is heavily dependent on the gold industry.
Okay.
So whenever there are challenges in the gold industry, our business community cry foul, right? Because the money is not coming as fast as it should. And of course, once things are in their favor, of course, they're very supportive again. But it is satisfactory, and we're very, very grateful for their continued effort in making Bartica the green model town.
Gifford, as you're not only the first, the only thus far mayor so far for Bartica, youngest. One of the things the current administration received heavy criticism for in maybe in office in the first 2 months, and today some people even believe that this is one of the issues that may very well haunt this government, and I'd like your sentiments on it. Is the fact that people feel that the government has not done or promoted and supported youth in the way that people expected it to. As a young mayor, do you believe that this is anything that is stacked against the government? And I should also ask you, has the government been able to some extent achieve providing for the youth demographic?
I've heard arguments, and I've weighed it, but we would have just in 2015 moved from 23 years of being led by one administration. And I don't want to say those 23 years were all bad, but there was a period in that 23 years where there was significant turmoil in this country. We saw a number of young people losing their lives. We saw, coming out from Bartica, whenever you travel to the city, persons would say you need to be careful. We saw a number of massacres happening around the country. Bartica experienced that firsthand, and I can tell you to today, whenever you use that word, it's a word that pierces the skin of our people. So we would have seen it all, and we would have experienced real horror, just use that word, right? For a period of time under those 23 years. In addition to that, the resources of this country, we can now safely say, were not going to the development of our people. They were going to a selected few. They were going for ulterior motives. Because even with Bartica, when you look at where Bartica is today, in terms of a news telling, $700 million. In case of our new power company, in excess of $500 million. In terms of our concrete roads, that's hundreds of millions of dollars. The question is, why this was not happening before, right? So we were at crossroads, and we needed the individuals with the experience, we needed the individuals with the know-how to take us through that period of time. I can tell you this, being mayor for the first year in the township of Bartica, it was crazy because what we inherited and what we saw, right? These people were actually heartless who was there before. Really, really heartless, and they were all about themselves. And sometimes we tend to, as young people, tend to buckle under the pressure. Because it's not easy. It's not easy when you would have experienced some of these things that these people would have done. And that's why I'm somewhat surprised that a number of them are not in jail. I'm somewhat surprised that they're not before the courts.
We all are surprised.
I think if there's anything that we have to ask the government is that, how they were able to get
some of them are still even collecting taxpayers' money, but
it's just amazing that they're able to walk the streets and even offer threats now that they're going to lock up people.
Exactly.
The groups in Bartica, I would say to them, right? Don't even mention it. Don't even, when it comes to corruption, we see happening nationally, don't even begin to use those words, because you all know how corrupt you are. And you don't want us to start speaking or start making reports to the station, to the police. Because, corruption was the way of life then. If you weren't corrupt, you could not have survived. And it was ridiculous, to say the least. So, what I'm saying, we've had our experienced leaders to take us through the transition. They still have a number of challenges, but I can say to you that I was given an opportunity as a young man to be the first mayor of Bartica. My deputy also, while she was just a year or two old for me, she also is very young. And the council, even now we have a very youthful council. We see in Georgetown here too a very young man. I think he's just in his 20s, or in his 20s,
yes,
right?
Yes, early 20s, yes.
Being the mayor of the city, and I think he would be the youngest ever.
Oh, you're talking about the mayor. No, the mayor is our age. He's in his 30s, his early 30s, but we have very young councillors.
Very young councillors, right? Yeah. Right. So the thing is, we would have seen young people getting experiences, but I think what they would have done is been caught up in the crossroads with the transition period. And some of our young people, of course, would have tend to get a little frustrated. But I think with the right information, they will they will, of course, understand, and of course we can move the process forward. Let me say this here. A young lady said to us in a group meeting that she needed some money, so she needed some resources. Now, we had a choice. We can actually give her, for example, you could give somebody $100,000 or $200,000, or you can actually build their capacity. And when you build their capacity, you're equipping them for life. We would say to our young people, and we said it to her, that listen, we know that under the previous administration, you have a need to just throw something at you or to just come wrong in these
People
communities.
actually tell you that, don't give me nothing, they used to give me money.
And just sharing out gifts. And those money just go because the young people go to the club, they go to other places and just recklessly squander it. So you're just throwing chicken feed to these people and they're just keeping them alive for a day. What we're doing, and we've started in Bartica, and I know it's happening around the country, is that we are building the capacity of our young people. What do I mean? First of all, we have to let our young people know that there's a life outside of the club. You don't have to spend every day going in the club and just throw back and just live a reckless life. We need our young people to understand that they need to be empowered, academically that is. So maybe life did not go the way you wanted to, so you dropped out of school, you had a child, but that is just a small part of it. There's much more to life. You can move forward. You can go to a technical institute. You can go back to school, meaning that you can go to lessons and you can get a few subjects, CXC subjects and so forth. And we've been working with our people, young people, to build their capacity. So at the end of the day, they're not only marketable here in Guyana or just in Bartica, they're marketable nationally and also internationally. They can travel anywhere and get a job. And that is our focus, giving young people scholarships, empowering them, offering them house lots, so at the end of the day, they of themselves become better individuals.
Let me play advocate for the negative just for a bit, and I know, viewers, we have to wrap up our conversation with the Mayor of Bartica very soon. But let me just play negative advocate for a bit. Some people who are bent on being negative may be watching this and saying, but how you're there talking and then you have a few, you got 1 and 2, and I'm specifically describing it as 1 and 2 young people who are going over to the other side, meaning the PPP, and they have no qualms about going on camera and saying, y'all this, y'all that, your government, your leaders don't support young people. How do you respond to people who may say, you could speak for you?
Malika, one of the things is sometimes we can't respond to all the things we hear in the streets, Even as mayor, sometimes some persons come and give me some stories, like a man was telling me something that they claim that I said, right? I mean, you just can't respond to all of these things. And in politics, and you know more than I do, that there'll always be crossover. But young people don't sell your soul cheap. Somebody come and give you $50,000 or $100,000 to cut a video, you have to know if that's where you want to destroy your life over, right? Life is much more to money. So don't take setup, like we would say in the streets. Don't sell yourself out, right? And persons are being paid to do a number of things, and that was always the history of the PPP, and that's why they were so corrupt, right? Because elections time, they come and they pay people to. Why should you have to pay people to vote for you? Exactly. Why should you just take money and just share? And where's that money coming from? And that's why we need to review our laws governing elections, because it's amazing that people would take billions of dollars and just distribute it like that and pay people to go and vote for them.
Well, it's paying, allegedly, it's allegedly paying that has us in this situation now, whereby there was a no confidence motion. Well, not the motion. What happened after the motion? It's allegedly paying that has us here.
But we need to have election laws, and we need to probably should have raised this with Nigel and some of our prominent lawyers in the country, and we need to look at this, because I believe that in itself is corruption. That in itself is illegal. And it's something going forward in strengthening our democracy we will definitely have to look at, because we can't continue with these corrupt practices. But young people, life is much more than $10,000 or $20,000. You of yourself, you need to be empowered, and we are here to empower you. We are here to provide opportunities for you. Now, there may be 100 young people listening to this program at the moment. We can't empower all of them tomorrow. But we can start with 5 and 10. And I can assure you in 3 years, in 4 years, 5 years time, we'll complete the entire 100. And that's what I say to our young people in Bartica.
Okay, nice.
The youths of Bartica are have a lot of confidence in this government. They know where Bartica was before, where we are today. They're seeing the investment in education. They're seeing the investment in health. they're benefiting from opportunities, and I believe at the next the next general and regional elections, they will continue to do what they would have done in the last local government elections and in the last general elections, and that's support the government. Like I said, our democracy is strong today, and that's because after 2 decades, we would have had an opportunity of having local government elections. And local government elections is not only to elect a mayor, it's not only to elect a deputy mayor, but in the case of Bartica, 18 individuals. And we would have presented a very youthful slate. So we have a number of seats on that council. We have the majority, and a number of our councillors are youths. And what are these young people doing? These young people are making a difference in their constituencies. They're listening to people. They're making representation for them, and that's where leadership starts. So in the next 5-10 years, right, we will have the kind of leaders in this country that know how to manage, know how to lead, because it starts at the bottom, it starts at the root. So we are very grateful for this government in the manner in which they would have strengthened our democracy. We're very grateful to this government for the resources that they're putting into the hinterland. And I'm going to say this to you, Malika, in the next 4 years and 5 years, we all will see the benefits of this local government elections and empowering our young people. We will definitely see it.
Gifford, it has always been a pleasure talking to you, whether on camera or off camera. I don't know if there's any other message you'd like to leave with our citizens at this point. If not, we're going to wrap up. But I shouldn't say I don't know if Gifford always has more to say. So I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to leave, especially at a time when basically the government, everyone who supports this government, and even people who don't support the government. I can't really, even some of the people who support the PPP for whatever reason. I know not all of you want violence well, I should not say violence, because then they're going to accuse me of accusing the opposition for calling for violence, and then they're going to claim that they did not say that. But for people who even are supporting the opposition, but you still want peace, and people who are clamoring for calm, I know you would have some sort of sentiment that you'd like to leave with them before we wrap up our discussion.
Malika, before I give my closing remarks, this is part of my closing remarks. I would like to use this opportunity to call on all of our leaders to be very responsible in their statements, be very responsible in their comments, because some things are implied.
Yes.
If you say to chase people out or use other language and terms, you actually imply in violence. And that's why I was very, very, very much moved yesterday when I saw a statement from the police force.
Yes.
Because it's getting a little overbearing. Some individuals believe that they have, the transport to Guyana, and nobody else should not manage the affairs of this country. As a result, they could say what they want and do as they please. So I would like to use this opportunity, as a humble citizen, to implore all our leaders to be very responsible. Secondly, I want to ask our citizens to be very peaceful. We've been in this situation before, but some persons making it look as if it's new.
So the sky
and
will fall.
The world is coming to an end,
wow.
right? The world is coming to an end now. But let us be responsible. Let us be respectful. Let's continue to send our children to school. Let us continue to go about our lives as normal. And I'm confident that in the coming days, we will hear a date for elections. As a matter of fact, you said that we should be hearing from the courts.
Well, that is the other leg, which is the appeal. That's decision supposed to be given by 3 today.
Right, and that's our constitution, and that's our laws are set up. Our country is constructed in that way, that even after today, if either side is not happy, there's still another level to move on to.
And both sides, this is the thing, this is the frustrating thing, both sides, both government and opposition said in the beginning that they're willing to go all the way. So I don't understand what the big deal is now.
Right, so let's respect the process. And at the end of the day, we will have elections. I can't say when, but we will have elections at the end of the day, whether it be this year or next year. We all go to the polls and we elect persons who we believe are the best managers of this country.
Exactly.
But don't let us be intimidated. Don't let us be provoked into doing things that are unlawful. And let's continue to love our country. Like I said to you, Guyanese, listen, you need to travel. When I say travel, not out of Guyana. I mean, you should get tired of Trinidad, Barbados, and the other countries, even the U.S. Travel to Madio, go to Letem, go to Upper Mazaruni, travel to Mabarum and these places, and you will see the beauty of our country. When you look at those individuals, the peoples of these areas, and you look in their eyes, right? I mean, you see something different. And I'm saying that we have so much to offer as a country. We have an international game 2 days, tomorrow, right? And then we have a number of other things happening. Regatta is coming up, by the way, and we expect to see you at the Bartica Regatta. So we have so much happening. We have so much going for us. Don't let us destroy our image. The world is looking. Let's continue to love our country, and I know that God will bless us all.
Well said. The mayor of Bartica, you know the official term is his, even though I know he doesn't necessarily like it.
That's right.
But the official term is His Worship the Mayor of Bartica, Mr. Gifford Marshall, and I'm always proud to say a very good political comrade and a very good friend of mine. It is always a pleasure having you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Malika.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Viewers, for those of you who would have missed this conversation, as usual, subsequently, maybe in another 2 hours or so, you can catch the entire conversation both on my YouTube channel and my Facebook page. What we'll do is take a quick break. On the other side of the break, I will, again, every week I have to keep doing this. I will give you an official parts of it, because it's a very long statement, parts of an official government response to the opposition leaders' accusations that the government is basically in cahoots with GCOM. You'll have that parts of that response, even though some of you've read it before. This is Facing the Nation. Stay tuned. All right, viewers, thanks for staying tuned. It's amazing how time flies, how quickly time flies when you're getting so much information. And it was really refreshing. I mean, all of my guests really, it's always a learning and a teaching moment here on Facing the Nation, because we always learn something new and we always get really good information. But I really appreciate all of the things that came from the mayor today, because we always talk about, especially me, sometimes you go, oh, and when you want to defend the government, you know how many things this government has done. We've transformed the nation and whatnot and whatnot. And we know that's the fact. But to hear the specifics from Gifford, especially coming from an area, coming from a region that we don't see every day. Some of us don't see it every week, every month. Some of us have been to Bartica in years. Others have never even been there. Not only to Bartica, but he talked about all the other areas, Letem, Madia, and so on, that, Guyana is a very beautiful country. And once again, I'm so happy that he gave specifics. It's almost time for me to wrap up today's program. I may wrap up a little earlier than usual, but again, and I have to really repeat some of the sentiments of the Director of Public Information, Mr. Imran Khan. And he sounds so exhausted when he comes on almost every week now to respond to the opposition leader. I keep saying it. People ask, why y'all keep responding to this man? Because unfortunately, even though we have the majority of our people, Guyanese, we're not stupid. They're smart. They know what he's trying to do. They know that he's only trying to sow seeds of discord and to divide this nation further. But at times you have to keep responding to let people understand what the government's position is. Not because we feel that people will swallow everything the opposition leader says, because frankly, I'm not the only person who is disgusted with it. Every single week, it becomes like you want to know whether it's a press conference or an opportunity to abuse out. And my biggest concern is, this is what you are teaching our young people, the young people that you claim that the government hasn't done anything for, hasn't provided. I can tell you, the government, we don't teach our young people to behave like that. It's conduct as adults, productive adults and citizens of this nation is very, very important. And he seemed not to understand that. So we have to keep responding, not for him, not to make him feel good. I even had someone say, like, when y'all respond to this man, you're feeding his ego. Yes, unfortunately, while we're responding, we're feeding his ego. But the public must understand the government's position in all of this. So again, it's a very lengthy statement. I don't have the time, and frankly, I did say to you last week, my voice is still recovering, and I don't want to strain it too much. And on that note, I must take the opportunity to remind people that I don't know if this is a cold and flu season, if this is the season. Whether it is or not, please take care of yourselves, take your vitamin C, drink enough water, ensure that you're hydrated, especially when you're like me, you have to be talking a lot, because when you get a cold like this or you get the flu, it can take a lot out of you. So again, that is just to emphasize the fact that I'll only read what I think are some of the important pieces of the very lengthy release from the government of Guyana. All right, the government of Guyana rejects the outrageous assertions by the opposition leader that President David Granger has colluded with the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, to delay the hosting of general and regional elections before April 30, 2019. The government wishes to remind Mr. Barjagdio that GCOM is an independent, autonomous agency that is responsible for the administration of elections in Guyana. The Constitution of Guyana at Article 62 provides that, quote, elections shall be independently supervised by the Elections Commission in accordance with the provisions of Article 162, end quote. Mr. Jagdio, at his press conference on the 20th of March, accused the head of state of abdicating in quotes, obviously, that's the word, responsibility to proclaim a date for GRE, meaning the general and regional elections. He said, to quote, and again, I hate having to do this, but this is quoting the opposition leader, you got your minions at GCOM to avoid even starting the preparations for elections. You're getting them to delay elections. You're claiming that you can't name an elections date until they are ready, in violation of your of your constitutional authority and the mandate as a president. You're devolving that to some other body, and then you're coming to claim now necessity. Viewers understand how difficult it is for me to quote from the opposition leader, because this is ridiculous, and it is getting ridiculous by the week. The government strongly condemns such statements as malicious and dangerous, with the intent to impugn the integrity of the president. As the holder of a constitutional office, Mr. Jagdio ought to be responsible when making public statements, particularly on matters of national importance. And I'll skip some of it because I did say it's very lengthy, and some of it is regurgitating what would have happened from December 21st to now. Additionally, President Granger has repeatedly emphasized that the government of Guyana will not interfere or intrude in the work of GCOM. Mr. Jagdio also falsely accused the president of influencing GCOM by using the government-nominated commissioners and the GCOM chairman to infringe on the independence of the entity. It should be noted that following the passage of the no-confidence motion in the National Assembly on December 21, 2018, President Granger said government will abide by constitutional requirements following the motion. Again, very lengthy statement. I pulled some of the important pieces out of it for those of you who, I know some of you are just absolutely fed up of all of this. So I just pulled some of the important pieces just to remind you, to let you understand that the government is seeing and it's hearing all of it. And viewers, even for those of you who are fed up of us saying, I know people have said that about the Director of Public Information, Mr. Imran Khan. For those of you who are fed up of hearing the back and forth, yes, we're all fed up of it. But remember, the government of Guyana, the elected government, a government elected by the people to serve, has a right to defend itself. So unfortunately, we may have to just continue to respond until all of this is solved. But in the meantime, I want to end the program on how I started. I want to end it with some of the things that the mayor of Bartica said. It's to remind people, be calm, be peaceful. Do not allow any irrational person to drive you to craziness that can get you into trouble. Our country is not in social crisis, it's not in constitutional crisis. Remember, there are laws, there are courts, and again, these things are available to both the opposition and the government. And again, the government has a right to defend itself, and the government has a right to use all of the avenues and the requirements available to it until it is exhausted. Nothing is unconstitutional or illegal or anything like that. So, and this is just to remind you to try to pick the sense. I don't know that there is much of that, but try to pick sense out of nonsense when that irrational gentleman comes to you every single week to behave as though he's at a corner gaff. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have with you this week on Facing the Nation. Once again, thank you very much to the Mayor of Bartica, Mr. Gifford Marshall, and thanks to you two at home and those of you who've been texting us, messaging us, and so on. Keep them coming, especially the ones, as I did say in the beginning, especially the ones who, you know, are bent on putting the filthy comments there too. We have enough time to keep removing them. So you continue to do that for us. I am Malika Ramsey. Again, be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And of course, this has been Facing the Nation.